Welcome back to your Pelvic Health Podcast. I am Susan Winograd, the owner of Pelvicorerehab, and I am thrilled to be your host. I am so excited about our episode this week. I'm welcoming Nicole Gonzalez-Cumberbatch. She is the owner and founder of the Motherhood Village. And without further ado, Nicole, welcome. I just want to dive right in. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So live in South Florida here. Near you, and I'm a proud boy mom. We were just talking about our kids. He's 5, going to kindergarten, so big transition year. I am a business owner. I have NGC Consulting, which is what I say is like, that's kind of what I did in corporate. I was an accountant and kind of have my business doing that. But my passion, my other business, and my passion is the Motherhood Village, and I founded that in 2021. That started as a podcast in 2019, where I just wanted to have honest conversations about motherhood. I had such an empowering home birth and very fortunate to have that for my first time. And there were still things I didn't know. And, then the postpartum kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, whoa. Fast forward 2019, I think my son was about almost 2 years old. And I was like, I need an outlet. I need to talk to people. Why aren't we talking about the way our relationship changes with our partners? Why don't we talk about how hard it is to now manage? I had such a high level career at the time. I was a VP of finance. And why aren't we talking about how hard it is to navigate back to going to work, and how maybe I don't want to go back to work, and how to ask for help? So all these emotions, and it was just very overwhelming. Started my podcast. Someone that I knew at the time had a sports podcast. He's like, yeah, get a mic, get a hosting thing, and that was that. And a lot of trial and error and a lot of late nights and editing myself and all of the things. And then fast forward to 2021, I realized in talking to a lot of my guests, they either had a village that propelled them or they didn't in their motherhood journey. And I don't know, it just inspired me to create the Motherhood Village. And in essence, I provide resources for the betterment of a mother's mental wellness and well-being, and I do that through community, through education, and through connection, and do a lot of events and all the things. But yeah.
I think that's beyond phenomenal. And as you're talking and telling us how this has evolved, I think back onto my own motherhood journey. And my husband and I, we met on college break when we were very young. It was like love at first sight. It's awesome. A little crazy. We were super young. My husband lived in South Florida. I lived in New York. And we had a long distance relationship for 1.5 years. And after about 1.5 years, my husband finished college. I finished college. He was on his way to med school. I was on my way to PT school. And we were like, okay, either seeing each other once a month is going to continue, or we're just going to get married and wing it. And we got married really young. We didn't have a pot to put food in, but it was the best years of our lives. And then we had my oldest daughter, Eliana, when, about 4 years later, my husband he was a resident. He was doing his trauma rotation the month Eliana was born, and we had just moved. So he was 24 hours on, 18 hours off, 24 hours on, 18 hours off. And we had some infertility struggles with her, and I, didn't think that I'd be able to get pregnant again. And when Eliana was 4 months old, I got pregnant with my son, Eitan, and I had 2 kids under the age of 18. Wow. I had a husband who was in residency, and I had to go back to work when my children were 6 weeks old because we were, we needed to support ourselves. And I remember Nicole just trying to get through the day. Yeah. And I didn't have a village. Thank goodness I have, really supportive parents who helped me as much as I could. But I remember feeling lonely. I remember feeling, how am I going to get through this? Is this supposed to be as hard as it is? And I met you, and as soon as I met you, I'm like, we have to get you on the podcast because no one should ever have to go it alone, right? And honestly, I think I was in such a crazy mood back then. It didn't even occur to me that I needed a village.
Yeah.
I didn't even seek it out because honestly, I was just trying to get through the day.
Sure.
So I think having conversations like this and your inspiration for your podcast to have open and honest conversations can really be life-changing for people.
No, for sure. And I think to your point, I think a lot of times that's even in entrepreneurship, but in it's very isolating being a new mom and you don't know what you don't know.
Yes.
And even back then, I don't even think we were having those conversations. And the only reason why I'm saying back then, because she looks phenomenal, is because I know your oldest is like 25.
No,
so
it is back then. I've been a PT for 30 years. I've been married for 30 years.
Yeah.
When I say those numbers,
Yes.
it sounds crazy. I feel like I'm, living an alternate life. In my real life, I am like 16. In my alternate life, somehow I became 50. I don't even know how that happened.
But you look fantastic. So when I said back
you.
then, I was like, I'm not putting but to the point, things have changed, right? And I think like families didn't know about date nights and we didn't know about the fathers taking paternity. We didn't know how important it was for those things. And times have changed remarkably.
Yeah.
For a lot of good of having the social media and knowing that we can have the podcast to normalize these conversations so that if a mother is listening, she could say, oh, I'm feeling that.
Yes.
Oh, how can I seek this out? Well, what should I do? And to give that information. But my heart goes out to you because I only had the one. And I remember being like, this is freaking insane.
Yeah.
No one, I think, can really prepare you when you're the first time mom of all of the emotions, the overwhelming amount of love, or even lack thereof at the moment where you're like, why am I so mad at this little person? Why am I resenting my partner? Why, all these words that we hear, no one can, I think, prepare you for that. I don't have obviously I just have the one, but I talked to someone on my podcast and she was like, I think we also have this misconception that you're only a new mom one time. She's like, but you're a new mom every time you have a child because that you're now becoming a new mother to this child.
Yes.
And knowing how to be a mom now of the 2 or of the 3 or however many children you have. And I'm like, oh, that's so poignant and so true. So my heart goes out to you in that because I'm sure, like you said, fast forward, you're like, oh yeah, you're great. But looking back, I'm sure that was a really you're like, how the heck did I get through that?
I look back and I do say that all the time and I talk about it quite often to my children. They're probably sick of hearing about it. But I love what you said about people not realizing that, the child is crying and you can't get it to stop crying. And all of a sudden you feel angry at this little munchkin that you love more than anything more in the world. I recently had a client who was a new mom. She came in for her postpartum visit. She looked exhausted and she came into my office and she just started hysterically crying. And she said, why didn't anybody tell me this was going to be so hard?
Yes.
And, I just kind of held her hand and gave her the space to let it all come to the surface. But I think we really, really don't prepare moms. I'm not sure that you can ever be prepared, but if we have the conversations of, when my kids didn't sleep well at night, they woke up every hour. I used to call them the long, lonely nights. My husband's an ER doc and he works 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. I was alone with the babies all night. And when the sun started going down, I'd be like, oh, here comes the long, lonely nights. And, Nicole and I were talking before we started the podcast. I really believe that I have two purposes, 2 missions in my life. One is motherhood and one is spreading awareness and helping people overcome pelvic health and wellness. So motherhood is my greatest and my most joyous mission, but there are so many hard things about it. There are so many challenging things. And I always tell everybody parenting is 2020 in retrospect, right? It's 2020 in hindsight. We look back and we think, oh, if I would have known it would have been so difficult, I would have maybe been able to stay a little calmer, or I would have said, okay, maybe tomorrow night will be better. But having these conversations, I think, is invaluable. The other thing that people tell me all the time, which I'd love to get your take on, is breastfeeding. we kind of, it is the most beautiful thing, and it is so connecting. But I have a lot of clients who are in a lot of pain when they start breastfeeding. I have a lot of clients who don't respond, their own bodies don't respond well to breastfeeding. They have like these emotional fluctuations that give them anxiety, or, and that can be really difficult. And I think the more conversations we have about that, and the more resources we can offer people to help them through it, the more enjoyable it will become.
So this is my take on it, because I breastfed my son up till he was 2 years old. And I started pumping immediately. I mean, I went back to work after he was 3 months. So I was pumping and breastfeeding and all the things. And it was hell, if I can say that on here. I mean, in the beginning, it really, really was. And I don't sugarcoat it, but I have that type A personality. I'm just the kind of person like, oh, we're going to do this. Was that a good thing? Was that a bad thing? Not sure. But I remember my peace of mind at some moments. I was like, what the heck am I doing? Why am I putting so much pressure? In the beginning, we did have to supplement as well. So what I say, and 100% you're exactly right. I think a lot of things in motherhood would go easy if we have the education, which we do. That's why we have podcasts like yours, right? I didn't even know about pelvic floor. And I had a midwife, right? And that I felt were very progressive in certain things, but I didn't even know about all that comes with that. I had to interview someone on my podcast, I think 2.5 years ago. And I was like, wait, what is this? So I think education is important. And I think educating moms on the truth that breastfeeding may be easy in the beginning, or it may not. I know my husband's aunt, she's a registered nurse and had been for 30 years, but also a midwife. And we were on WhatsApp all the time. And she's like, look, do you want to do this? And I said, I do. She was like, well, then the next 2 weeks are going to be the most difficult. My milk wasn't coming in. She's like, supplement, but, stay with it. And it was. Then after, I think the first probably 2 weeks, the milk coming in, right? But we don't know about that. We don't know that. Because I was like, what is this feeling? What is this?
Yeah.
I think education is key. That's why these kind of conversations. I love that there are so many lactation consultants.
Oh my gosh.
To really help, right?
Yes.
Because then there could be tongue ties. There's so many things that I think moms then think it's something wrong with me, but it's not. So that's one, education. And number two, just knowing that this too shall pass, and whether you can breastfeed or not, it's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, if you want to, again, I believe in informed choice all the way around for most things. And I think parents should do what's best for their families, but just know all your options. Know everything. If you want epidural, you know what? Freaking take the epidural, but know what may happen, right or wrong, or whatever the case may be. Just be informed with the decisions you want to make for you, for your body, for yourself, for your family. And if you want to breastfeed, girl, you can do it. Trust me, you can.
Absolutely.
But know it may be hard. Take the steps and know that this too shall pass. And it is okay if you have to supplement. It is okay if you might have to take a break. Because there were moments where I was very thankful I was breastfeeding, because we were randomly out and we forgot his pacifier. And I was like, oh, shoot. And he was screaming.
Yes.
Took out the breasts.
I know.
Breastfed. He was good to go. So it has its moments. We're looking back. But I wish I wouldn't have put so much pressure on myself. And that's probably something I would have changed. So in me talking to the moms listening to this is me talking to myself, had it been 5 years ago, of like, this too shall pass. Take it day by day, and that's all you can do.
Yeah, that's all you can do. And I think to your point as well, what I tell people, if with their birthing plan or whether they're planning to breastfeed, learn all your options, become educated.
Yeah.
But if you make a decision and you change your mind, that's okay too.
Yes.
If you're breastfeeding and it's not working for you and you decide to supplement or you decide to stop, that's okay. Do what's best for you. Or you have a birth plan and at the last minute, you're like, oh my God, really do not want to do this right now. And you decide to have an epidural. That's okay.
Yes.
Just get all the information before.
For sure.
You can make a decision, but also give yourself the grace if you decide to change your mind.
Absolutely.
It sounds like we have pretty similar personalities. So I also make a decision. I feel like I have to follow through with it. And if I don't follow through, I failed. And I will tell you, Nicole, I think that is one of the beauties of aging, I will say, because the older I get, the more grace I give myself. You know, there was a period in my life where I was running, I was doing short races, and I was like, I have to run 4 days a week. And I stopped enjoying it as much. And I'm at the point in my life right now where I wake up and I think to myself, am I in the mood of doing yoga? Am I in the mood of doing Pilates? Am I in the mood of, stretching? Am I in the mood of doing nothing? Am I in the mood of walking? Am I in the mood of doing a strength workout? So I think that as we get older, or me, I should just speak to myself, I really work on being a little bit more flexible with myself. One more point I want to make about being a new mom to every child, if you have multiple children, is yes, every single child that you have will be a new parenting experience. But what I have found I have four amazing children, is that my children were born with certain personalities, and they carry those personalities throughout their life. So, I think we have this perception that we have one, we're going to have another, and it's going to be the same journey. And I will tell you that they are born with the personalities that they are going to have. And it's a different experience, but it's such a joyful experience. Also, it's like really getting to know this human being, and you can see their personalities from a very young age. So I think that's super cool. Nicole, I was really scouring through your website, which is amazing. And I'd love for you to share with us the services and that you offer in the Motherhood Village, and kind of tell us a little bit about each one, because I want everybody to know about this.
Sure. Thank you. When I was in corporate for a long time, and then I became a mom, I felt a lot of the resources weren't geared towards working parents. So they had like Mommy and Me classes in the beginning. And truthfully, after my son was born, I had a lot of postpartum anxiety, something else that came out of left field. I had a lot of angst about going out and being with other moms. I just thought I was going to be judged. I thought I was very self-conscious. So if anyone listening to this and you are experiencing that, it is normal, but also get help, talk to someone. Thankfully, I talked a lot with my husband, and I'm very thankful that, he's just a practical, smart, just like, we'd have conversations. Yes. And, so that did help guide me. But I had a lot of angst. I couldn't go out with him. If he cried, I'd get all like, oh, what if I can't, soothe him? And what would that look like? I say all that to say it stopped me from going to a lot of things. So, after starting the Motherhood Village, I said, okay, well, again, what are things I wish I would have had? What are things that I heard women saying that they wish they had? So number one, I wanted to always do a support group. So I have support groups. I have them in the evening. I started the first one in Coconut Creek with actually a guest from my podcast. He's a chiropractor. That's been going strong since July.
Dr. Mukhtafi.
Yes, Dr.
He's
Mukhtafi.
amazing.
Yes, he is. And him and I both, we all kind of, we have the passion to really serve families and support parents and moms. So we have that. And then I have two other support groups, one in Margate at actually the birthing center where my midwives are, and Pompano Beach, which actually we have one this evening. And they've just been going great. And they're basically a safe, open, non-judgmental space for moms to come and let it out. Sometimes I have guest speakers come, really all about fostering the resources that are in the community. So moms, I've had acupuncturists come, I've had nutritionists, someone who talked about goal setting, a self-esteem coach, just speakers to come. And then I also usually have a lead therapist that comes, and they'll speak to the women, or sometimes I lead the group. Very powerful. I also collaborate with some of the experts on my podcast, where I'll do webinars and workshops. So my very first one I did, I think it was end of 2021, and it was for new and expectant moms. We had a lactation consultant. We had a perinatal mental health consultant. We had someone actually, they're based in Rhode Island, but she does virtual sleep consulting and other postpartum services for moms that I loved. And then there's a woman by the name of Dr. Organic Mommy. She's awesome. And we talked about non-toxic living and ways that we can incorporate more healthier lifestyles without breaking the budget. Because I realize a lot of new moms, that's very big to us and what that means. So and we had a 2-day webinar. That was like my first one I put together, and I've done more since. I did one on career burnout, family law, again, fostering the connection and the resources available. What else do I do?
That is amazing.
Last year I put on my first summit. So again, spending time in corporate, I would go to a lot of conferences, summits, symposiums, whatever you want to call them, either women in business or in general. And after having my son, and even last year, I was like, I really want to put something together that's like a business conference, but for moms, and doing all the things I want, which is a community, the education, connection. And we did my first one last year. A lot of local businesses sponsored a product or service for the parents for the raffle prizes. I had 4 keynote speakers, and it was just a day for moms to feel uplifted and supported. And I'm doing my second one this year, that I'm very excited for. I have a back to school event coming up.
That is
again,
phenomenal.
my whole mission and everything that I do, a lot of my services are just ways to foster the community connection for moms that don't know what they don't know.
Right.
That's all I'm trying to do.
And, you know, I'm listening to you speak, and you're talking about the summit, and it's a day for moms. And one of the things that moms very often neglect is self-care,
Yes.
right? And I think just taking a day to go to one of your summits is the most beautiful form of self-care. It allows you to be among other moms who can really relate to you and learn at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think that's phenomenal. And I know this is your second summit, but I know that this is going to just grow and grow and grow and become an annual thing, which is phenomenal.
Yes.
How do you see pelvic health blending into the, I mean, you know, it sounds intuitive, but I think we should articulate how pelvic health blends into your motherhood mission and vision.
I think it blends because it's all about the education. Like I said, I didn't even know about it until I spoke with someone a couple of years ago, and I was like, wait, what are you, a pelvic, wait, talk to me about that. And that kind of blew my mind. I'm like, how are other moms, do women not know about this? Why don't OBGYNs tell their patients like, hey, you know, why isn't this part of, look, you and I, like we said, we're very similar. I need a checklist, right?
Yes.
I need like tell me this so I can check it off and know this is my next step. Why aren't we?
I'm the queen of checklists. I make checklists on my checklist.
Yes. Oh gosh. I have my notebook and then I have my Post-it with it's like.
Is there not any better feeling in the world than crossing something off your checklist?
So why don't we do that for moms to say, okay, look, you just had a baby. And yes, to the point, it may feel differently and maybe even look differently to some extent. However, we know, well, you should see a pelvic floor therapist.
Yes.
We know that you should see this. We know that, you know what, here's a number to a perinatal mental health therapist, just in case you have questions, right? Why don't we have this? By the way, that's something I'm putting together is like a postpartum thing. So we'll talk.
That's amazing.
Again, mental wellness, mental well-being. But yeah, so why don't we have these checklists to help moms? So it fits because that's all what I'm about is the connection and saying, moms, if you didn't know about this, but you need to talk to a pelvic floor therapist, whether you think you need one or not, because your body just went through a massive shift and change. And we're just like, okay, hon, bye, go to work and we'll see you later.
A massive shift and change physically, chemically, hormonally, emotionally, psychologically. At Pelvicorerehab, we always say we quarterback people's care. We help them build a village as well, which is why I got so excited when we saw you. So for moms that are, I really believe that moms should have pelvic floor therapy when they're pregnant to stay connected to their pelvic floor, to stay aligned so that they can stay connected to their abdominal wall. We need to be proactive about our care when we're pregnant 100%. So that we can stay healthy while we're pregnant, so that we can continue to feel great while we're pregnant, but also to facilitate healing after birth. I cannot even tell you how many clients I've had that have come to us during pregnancy and they tell us, you know, if it's not their first child, how much easier their healing was, how empowered they felt during the rest of their pregnancy, during birth, and it's certainly in their postpartum period, and also to have that established relationship with a therapist that you know has your back. But we also talk about postpartum depression, we work with an amazing psychotherapist. His name is Dr. Moshe Winograd. We are not related. I'm old enough to be his mother. We just collaborate professionally, but he specializes in pregnancy loss, which is also something that we just don't talk enough about.
Yes.
Even if you do have children, but you've experienced a pregnancy loss, there are so many things that can be triggering. And, there's help for that. We ask clients, what do you want? We'll tell you what we think you need for your village, but what is your body calling for as well? So I think we're very in line with how we approach health and wellness and empowerment and mindset, because really ultimately it comes down to mindset, right? If you have if you have support, and if you have the people around you, you're going to have a positive mindset, and a positive mindset just leads to positive actions, I believe, and more productivity.
I always say, I'm like, I do presentations now of how to find your village and the importance of finding your village, because I think we believe it as this physicality, which, yes, to some regard, yes, like you said, your husband, when you first had your children, your husband was working, you guys are trying to figure out life and careers. Thank God you had your parents. Same thing. I have my mother-in-law, my parents are down the road, my sister, so we have that physical village, but there's also the things to uplift us. And I think who and what we surround ourselves with, to any moms listening, social media is a big, I think, one that can help us depending on if we're finding and going after the right village, but it can also hinder us because we do a lot of comparison, and we think, oh gosh, this mother just had a baby and they're up and running, so that needs to be me. Focus on what you can and focus on the village that you need for your family and for yourself and what's going to propel you forward. One of my biggest quotes I say is, it takes a village to raise a child, but most importantly to uplift a mother. And I think that's what we're trying to do, right? Whether it's physical, whether it's mental, whatever the case may be, because moms are the nucleus of the families. And when mama's good, all trickles down.
Yes.
Everybody's good.
Yes. You can only take as good care of other people as you take care of yourself.
100%.
Yes. When moms are pregnant also, there's like a huge shift. There's a huge attention on mom, right? How do you feel? Your belly looks so cute. What's your birth plan? Yes. And then mom has the baby and it's all about the baby. And I was actually talking to Dr. Mukhtafi about this, and I said, when I started to recognize that when I had my own children, I made a very conscious decision that when moms had babies, I get the mama gift, because everybody's getting the mama baby gift. And you know what? Mom needs a gift
and
at that point.
And babies don't need anything. Like to your point, I'm like, baby, like whether you breastfeed or not, you need formula or your breasts, and taking care of yourself are there. Maybe some onesies, wipes and diapers. Like, babies really don't need much like the first. They really don't.
They really don't. They need a lot of skin-to-skin cuddle time. That's what they need. But I think it's so important to continue to ask mom how she's feeling. How's mom doing? What does mom need? What support does she have? Do you find, Nicole, that there are different challenges between working moms and staying-at-home moms? Because let me tell you, my daughter and her husband went away for 48 hours, and they left me with the kids, and they came home, and I said to my husband, I'm like, I don't remember if I drank. I don't remember if I eat. I don't remember if I peed. I remember if I pooped. I don't remember if I'm like, I forgot how hard this is. So staying at home is just as hard as working. And I'm wondering if you see moms talking about different challenges between stay-at-home and working moms.
That's a good question. Most of the women in my community, funny or not, they're actually all working moms in some capacity, whether they're working from home. But I have talked to some homeschooling moms and moms that kind of stay at home, but they still kind of all work. I think we're in a transition period where I think even if you are a stay-at-home mom, and my husband kind of reminds me, he's like, well, because you kind of need a two income household, right? It's gone kind of some of those days where, you had one person as like being the income provider, like we kind of have it, whether it's a side hustle or something, but
life is expensive.
Yes. And it's only getting more, you know? So he constantly reminds me of that. But, I think what I have seen in the women that I have talked to is, to your point, a lot of it is just the same. I think we're all craving that connection in some regard. So if you're staying at home with a child all day, first of all, I couldn't even imagine, because when COVID did hit and I was home with my son, and God, I adore that little boy to pieces. I was like, oh no, I need to be out. I couldn't be there 24/7. Then I started getting the guilt of that. And I was like, I'm not the Pinterest mom. I don't like doing the activities. It's just not my thing. So I had to let go and give myself grace and say, you know what, when we're just going to have fun and just kind of he'll learn that way, right? I had to give myself grace that we don't need to have structured projects. But I think we're all craving connection. I think when you boil down to it, that's what it is. I think when a mom's home all day, she's overstimulated.
Yes.
But even if I'm out working, same thing. And I think the flip side is then you have the guilt, then you're not spending enough time with your kids if you're out. You're home, you're spending too much, and maybe you're overstimulated. You're out, and you're like, shoot, I could be doing more. Right. So I think it's still the juxtaposition of trying to balance both sides of it.
And I'm not really sure you ever find that balance. You're always working toward the balance, but it evolves and it changes over time with your own needs and your kids' needs. And I think just having present moment consciousness and just really reevaluating what your family needs and what you need is so important. My children are older, and when my children were young, I always worked. I went back to work when they were all 6 weeks old, because I am like you. I'm a doer. I love what I do, and I love being a mom. So I always did both. And my rule for myself when I was a working mom was that I will work, but I want to be home when my kids leave to school, and I want to be home when they get home from school. And I always did that. And my kids are older. Your kids are older when you leave the house for 5 hours and they were like, don't even know that you were gone. So I have started to expand my business and grow my business and start a podcast and a YouTube channel and, thinking, okay, my kids are on their own. They don't need me. And one of my sons, whose name I will not mention, said to me, a couple of weeks ago, he's like, Mom, you're really not as available as you used to be. And just stabbed me in the heart. I'm like, and my son doesn't even live at home anymore. He lives in New York City. He comes home. But you know what? My kids got used to me being there and available. So it really honestly made me reevaluate and say, okay, I don't want to cut back on my work, but I need to make my kids
a priority,
feel like they are, that I'm available to them. And it's hard through each stage in life, even now that my kids are not home anymore. You kind of have to keep learning and growing and
well, it sounds like because you don't want to be waiting at the phone for them to call you. You don't want to be nagging them, right? Because I'm an older, I'll be 40. So my mother and I have the same kind of thing. I'm like, I call her every morning. We have our conversations. But I would imagine on the flip side, when my son gets older too, that feeling like, well, I can't be at the phone just waiting for you to call, but I can't be calling you. So you have to try and like, how much am I there? But how much am I still like, I'm here.
Right.
Yeah, that's hard.
And, maybe having that difficult conversation with your older children of, you're independent, you're living your own life. I am here whenever you need me, but I'm not at the phone anymore waiting for you to call. If you need me, I'm there. But just because I don't answer the phone because I'm working doesn't mean that I'm not available. It means that I'm busy when you're calling.
Sure. Can I want to give this one piece of, because we were talking about the working parents, and it's something that people constantly ask me because I have a lot going on. I do have two businesses. I have my consulting business that runs, and I have clients, and I have to be on point with that. I always say like that's my income driver right now. And then I have me growing this baby of the Motherhood Village. So there's a lot, and understanding the importance of my self-care. I go to the gym and certain things for my own mental wellness. But how I juggle it, balance it, however you want to call it, is if I am spending time away from my son, I'll make sure the next day or within the 48 hours, I'm giving him the attention that he needs. I think a lot of times moms put so much pressure that it has to be this elaborate thing, even if it's a date night with your partner, even if it's something for yourself, it doesn't. Just give whatever that thing is the full attention it deserves. So case in point, this weekend we went away for a wedding. I knew when we came back, because my son is, like I said, very mature for his age and he could articulate very well. He's like, I did not even get a chance to spend time with you this weekend. What are we going to do? X, Y, Z, whatever. So I said, well, you have to go to school. And he said, but we just didn't see each other this weekend. And now I'm not going to see you all day. And I said, well, what if mommy picks you up and then we go to Monkey Joe's? And he paused and he said, I would like that. I said, okay, then it's a date. Aww. So instead of me having this guilt of like, well, now I have to go serve my clients. He has to go to school, but I didn't spend time. It was like, you know what? What's the problem? You know what? Do you want to do Monkey Joe's and then we can get ice cream? It was like, he was like, absolutely.
Right.
My husband came, we took him out, and that was like the best hour and change he had. Didn't even care that we were gone for the weekend. So I think to the moms listening, just like, it doesn't have to be elaborate. And if you are gone, that's okay. And make it up and find another way to reconnect somewhere within that vicinity.
Yes. And I think, your son sounds amazing, but I think he's still young. And what you did for him is you created boundaries and you defined, okay, I know you want to spend time with me. Yeah. I can't be there all day, but how about if I set aside a time that's just for you? And really, that's what kids want.
That's what we want from us.
That's what we want.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Nicole, how do you recharge? How do you reset? How do you take care of yourself? You're a mom. You own another company. What are some of your own go-to strategies?
It's recognizing when I need to rest, because it's so funny. I was talking to someone. I was like, I like working. Actually, when I was away this weekend, my husband already knew me. I was like, I need to get back to my calendar. I need to log into my computer.
I'm the same way.
And for better or for worse, right? And I do. So I've learned to feed into that, and that it's okay, that I enjoy working, but recognizing when I need to rest. And that has been my key. I also had to look at myself in the mirror, because I kept trying to figure out all the different ways to go to the gym, and it wasn't working. And I was like, okay, you have to get your butt up. Like, stop making the excuses. If this is what you want, which is what I did,
right.
I'm like, I'm turning 40. I need to kind of get, I was in the best shape of my life before my son was born. 5 years later, I'm like, I need to do something. Looked in the mirror and I was like, well, get your butt up and go. So I have a trainer. So I get up 5 a.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Wow. You go, girl.
And that has been for me what I need, right? Because that's the only time I can really do it. I don't feel the guilt. My son is sleeping. Like, it's just like mommy time. And like I said, I just recognize when I need to rest. Go to bed early when I do. But the days that I have to stay up late, I give myself the grace.
Yes.
And I know that, again, it's like this too shall pass. Sometimes I have to grind. But I recognize when maybe I need some retail therapy. I recognize when maybe I need...
I love that, retail therapy.
Right? Where...
Yeah.
We were talking about my shirt, walking into the mall and saying, I'm going to buy myself a few things.
Yes.
Knowing when I need to reconnect with my husband. I think it's being really self-aware and in tune with what your body needs at that moment.
Right.
And I've done really well of recognizing that, but actually doing something about it. That has helped.
I'm reading an amazing book now called Untamed by Glennon Doyle.
I read that book.
Oh, my
Amazing.
God. And
yes.
I was just telling my coworkers about it, how... I highly recommend the book, but it's all about how she was living this life and she just realized she wasn't living her true self, and really did the work to heal herself in things that she was struggling with, but also to reinvent herself and really become who she was truly meant to be. And I think the book is so inspiring. And, there were some chapters in the book where I'm like, I'm going to go get it. I'm going to go get it. I'm going to be my true self, and I think we are living our true selves, but we get bogged down very often. I feel like I get bogged down with the little things that hinder me from becoming who I truly am, and that hinder me from doing what I love best even better. So I need to, it really inspired me to unclutter my life and unclutter my mind.
I love that. And I think that's a great way, if, to kind of even end with this, of saying that is like, live. I think for me, and some of my friends are like, stop. My older women kind of mentors, they're like, oh, don't put too much emphasis on age. But I'm like, I am going to be 40. Like, that's a big major step for myself. I'm like, to your point, I'm like, I'm going to be 40. I have a little one. He's starting kindergarten, major life transitions just with, like, I'm a business owner. Like, things are really coming in perspective. And I was like, to your point, I read that book, highly inspirational, and I was like, I don't want to live anymore for I want to do what I want to do.
Right.
If that means I want to watch TV, I don't want Instagram to make me feel bad because I'm binge watching a show.
Yes.
Again,
yes.
it's recognizing what you need at that moment
Yes.
and giving yourself
the more
grace.
you do that, the better you show up for other people.
100%.
I want it, before we take off, and I want to hear your takeaways, I do want to say something about social media. I think there is a lot of value in social media, but there's a lot of catastrophization also. So moms, find yourself a positive, productive group and stick with that. If there's something about social media that's not feeling right to you, then stay away from it. There are so many wonderful groups out there that you can join online on social media and stick to those positive, productive groups, because we don't need to be in groups that are comparing and making life look like everybody is living the quintessential dream. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors. So be true to yourself. Nicole, I'd love for you to I could talk to you forever, but I'd love to hear just some takeaways and maybe your favorite book that you recommend to people, because I'm a book junkie.
Sure, same. So Untamed is a great one. Big Magic is another one. I don't remember the author, but if you need really good inspiration, it's one of those books like you can pick up and read anytime.
I love that.
And it's about living into your purpose and finding your magic. Excellent book. I don't remember the author, but I'm sure if you search
I'll
Big
find
Magic.
it and I'll put it in the show notes.
As a parenting book, Good Inside by Dr. Becky, another great book. Untamed is great. And there's a book called Life Pass, which is by the founder of ClassPass. I'm sure we all know the app ClassPass. Her name is Payel. I don't know her last name. Another excellent, just kind of like goal setting, but in a different kind of way, personal development. Very good. And then, of course, I love all my, what's the author? Colleen Hoover and her books. My sister got me into those. I love those kind of books.
Well, we have a Pelvicore book club, so maybe I'll highlight all of these books. I'm for sure going to highlight Untamed,
for sure.
But I love those kind of books.
Yeah, they're good to kind of get away. Like those other books, like it takes me time and I have to go back. But like the Colleen Hoovers, and that's just because that's like the immediate author I can think of right now. I could read those books and it takes me away.
Yes, I love books that take you away, and I also love the book May Cause Miracles. It's like this daily guide to how to improve your life and become your true self. So Nicole, you are amazing. A few pearls of wisdom before we say goodbye to our listeners.
I think we've said it a lot, but I truly believe it to my core is find your village, seek out those that uplift you, seek out those that empower you, that are not going to make you feel bad. Live in your truth and whatever that may be, and don't apologize for it. And always remember that this too shall pass, in your state of motherhood, if you're in an overwhelming state or not, and you're in that awesome, state that maybe everything, just know this too shall pass, and kind of embrace the season that you're in, and do not be afraid to ask for help.
Yes. Amen to that.
Yes.
I know our listeners are going to want to find you, Nicole. Yes. Where can they find you?
So very simple, themotherhoodvillage.com. That's where you can subscribe to my newsletter. I don't spam. It's just really resources or upcoming events that I have. And the Motherhood Village, you can search for that on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Right. Nicole, I know we're going to do tons of great work together in the future. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Your Pelvic Health Podcast, where we give you the real lowdown on all pelvic health matters. Don't forget to like, follow, and give us a 5-star review so that we can continue to bring you the information that you want to hear. And if you found this podcast helpful, please share and tag us. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, you need to be your own best advocate, and healing requires a total body approach.
100%. Thank you.